Have you ever stood in an ancient ruin and felt like the walls themselves were whispering to you? There's something haunting about the way sound behaves in these places, echoes that linger a little too long, whispers that carry farther than they should, chambers that seem to amplify voices in ways that defy logic. Ancient civilizations didn't just build for beauty or durability. They engineered their sacred spaces to play tricks with sound, creating acoustic marvels we're only just beginning to decode. Imagine walking into a temple where a single word spoken softly at one end can be heard crystal clear at the other, as if the stones themselves were designed to carry secrets across centuries. These aren't accidents, they're proof that our ancestors understood the power of sound in ways we're still struggling to grasp. From the echoing corridors of underground crypts to the soaring domes of forgotten temples, these sites hold mysteries that blur the line between science and the supernatural. Why would a civilization carve a staircase that produces musical notes when walked upon? How did a whispering gallery built thousands of years ago flawlessly transmit voices across impossible distances? The deeper we dig, the more we realize these acoustic wonders weren't just for show. They were tools, perhaps even weapons, woven into the fabric of daily life, worship, and ceremony. Some researchers believe these sounds were meant to connect the living with the divine, creating bridges between worlds using nothing but vibrations in the air. Today, we're uncovering 25 of these extraordinary places, each with its own acoustic enigma waiting to be unraveled. You'll hear about chambers that mimic animal calls, amphitheaters where a dropped pin can be heard from the back row, and ruins that seem to hum with energy when the wind blows just right. These aren't just quirks of architecture, they're deliberate, sophisticated feats of engineering that challenge what we thought we knew about ancient technology. So join me as we step into the shadows of these sonic marvels, where every echo carries a clue, and the past might just be waiting to speak to us if we're ready to listen. Beneath the sun-baked streets of Malta lies a labyrinth that defies the laws of sound, the Hypogeum of Saflieni, a three-level underground temple carved from solid limestone more than 5,000 years ago. Step inside the so-called oracle chamber, and you'll quickly realize this isn't just another ancient ruin. Speak a word here, and your voice doesn't just echo, it ripples through the air with an eerie, almost metallic resonance, bouncing off the curved walls in ways that make it seem like the sound is originating from deep within the stone itself. Archaeologists have measured frequencies here that hover around 110 Hz, a tone known to trigger altered states of consciousness in humans. Was this intentional? The builders didn't leave blueprints, but the precision of these chambers suggests they understood something profound about acoustics long before the science existed. Move deeper into the Hypogeum, and the soundscape shifts dramatically. One alcove amplifies whispers so clearly that words spoken softly at the entrance can be heard perfectly 40 feet away, yet just steps beyond, the same voice becomes garbled as if swallowed by the earth. Some researchers believe these acoustic zones were designed for rituals, perhaps allowing priests to deliver hidden messages or simulate the voices of spirits during ceremonies. Even more haunting is the way low-frequency chanting resonates here, creating vibrations that can be felt in the bones. Modern experiments show that certain tones cause the entire chamber to hum like a giant tuning fork, a phenomenon that would have been nothing short of mystical to Neolithic worshippers. The Hypogeum's most chilling feature might be what happens when you stand in its deepest chamber. Sing a specific note, and the sound doesn't fade, it lingers, stretching into a sustained drone that seems to come from every direction at once. Local legends speak of this space as a gateway to the underworld, where the dead could communicate through echoes. Whether it was sacred theater or sonic engineering, one thing's certain: the people who built this underground marvel didn't just dig a temple. They composed an experience using stone and sound to blur the line between the physical and the divine. Even today, with all our technology, we still can't fully explain how they did it. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands silent under the desert sun, its towering limestone blocks hiding secrets far stranger than hieroglyphs. Step inside, and the air seems to hum with something beyond quiet, a stillness so profound it amplifies every breath, every footstep, until the weight of centuries presses against your eardrums. But whisper a word in the king's chamber, and the walls answer back in ways that defy explanation. Sound here doesn't just travel, it twists, bending through the narrow granite passageways with an eerie precision that leaves scientists baffled. Experiments have revealed something uncanny. Strike a tuning fork at certain frequencies inside the chamber, and the entire space resonates as if the pyramid itself were a colossal instrument. The reverberations linger far longer than physics predicts, with echoes stretching into seconds, almost as if the stones were designed to trap sound. One study found that low-frequency vibrations, like those produced by chanting, create a standing wave effect where the sound seems to hover in the air, thickening it like honey. Some researchers argue this couldn't be accidental. The pyramid's dimensions, the exact angles of its corridors, even the materials used, granite for the inner chambers, limestone for the outer shell, all seem calculated to manipulate acoustics in ways we're only beginning to measure. Then there's the subterranean chamber, a rough-hewn pit beneath the pyramid's base where sound behaves even more mysteriously. Voices dropped into its depths don't echo, they fracture, scattering into dissonant whispers that skitter up the walls like ghosts. Early explorers wrote of hearing what sounded like distant drums when wind rushed through the pyramid's shafts, leading some to speculate these weren't just air passages but giant resonating tubes. Could the builders have been creating a sonic landscape for rituals, using architecture to simulate the voices of gods or the rumble of the underworld? The most haunting theory comes from engineers who have mapped the pyramid's acoustic hotspots. When specific notes are sung in unison inside the Grand Gallery, the overlapping echoes produce a chord so dense it's been described as the sound of the earth itself vibrating. Ancient texts mention secret ceremonies where initiates underwent trials of sound, perhaps standing in these very spots, while priests used the pyramid's natural amplification to conjure illusions of divine contact. Whether by design or some fluke of geometry, the Great Pyramid doesn't just preserve the past, it reverberates with it, leaving us to wonder if its true purpose wasn't just to house the dead but to speak to them. High in the Andes, where the air thins and the mountains loom like silent sentinels, lies Chavín de Huántar, a temple so unnerving in its design that even modern visitors speak of feeling watched. Step into its maze of underground tunnels, and the first thing you'll notice isn't the darkness, but the way sound warps around you. The walls here don't just echo, they distort, bending whispers into growls and footsteps into thunder. But the real horror lies in the pututus conch shell trumpets carved by the Chavín people over 2,000 years ago. Blow into one of these eerie instruments, and the sound that rips through the corridors isn't human, it's the roar of a jaguar, so lifelike it sends chills down your spine. Archaeologists have spent decades mapping the acoustic traps hidden in these passageways. Narrow ducts funnel sound in unnatural ways, making a priest's voice seem to leap from wall to wall, as if spirits were chanting just out of sight. The effect is deliberate. Worshippers navigating these tunnels would hear growls echoing from every direction, feeling the vibrations hum through the stone beneath their feet. Imagine walking deeper into the labyrinth, your torch flickering, only to hear a predator's snarl erupt from the darkness ahead, then behind you, then all around you. The temple's piece de résistance is the Lanzon monolith, a dagger-shaped idol hidden in the heart of the complex. Stand before it, and the acoustics shift unnervingly. Chanting here produces a dissonant chorus, with certain notes amplifying until they vibrate the very floor. Researchers believe initiates were led blindfolded through these tunnels during rituals, their senses overwhelmed by engineered roars and disembodied voices, a psychological gauntlet designed to break down reality. What's most unsettling isn't just the precision of these sound effects, but their purpose. The Chavín didn't just want to impress, they weaponized acoustics to induce terror and transcendence. Modern experiments show that the jaguar roars produced by the pututus hit frequencies known to trigger fight or flight responses. Combined with hallucinogenic drugs found in the temple, the effect would have been hallucinatory, worshippers convinced they stood in the jaws of the divine. And then there's the secret the tunnels keep even now. Play two pututus at opposite ends of the complex, and the sound waves collide midair, creating a third, phantom roar that seems to come from nowhere at all. No one knows how the builders calculated this acoustic illusion, but one thing's certain. In Chavín de Huántar, the stones don't just echo, they hunt. High on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, where the air smells of burnt laurel leaves and old stone, the oracle chamber at Delphi hums with the ghosts of 1,000 prophecies. This was no ordinary shrine, it was the beating heart of the ancient world, where kings and peasants alike climbed treacherous paths to hear the words of the Pythia, the woman who spoke for the gods. But step inside that sunken chamber, and you'll realize her power wasn't just in the cryptic verses she uttered. It was in the way the room itself conspired to make her voice something more than human. The chamber's design was a masterclass in acoustic manipulation. Carved into the bedrock like a giant seashell, its curved walls caught every whisper, every sigh, and spun them into echoes that slithered along the stone. When the Pythia sat atop her sacred tripod, breathing in vapors that seeped from cracks in the earth, her voice didn't just speak, it multiplied. Words bounced off the walls at odd angles, layering over each other until they seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Pilgrims kneeling in the antechamber wouldn't just hear her prophecies, they'd feel them as the vibrations crawled up their spines like spider legs. Recent excavations have uncovered something even stranger. The chamber wasn't just shaped for echoes, it was tuned. The dimensions create a resonance frequency that matches the range of the human voice, meaning the Pythia's utterances would have been amplified naturally, while background noise dissolved into a haunting murmur. Some scholars believe the priests of Apollo exploited this effect, timing her pronouncements to coincide with the chamber's natural reverberations. Imagine hearing a woman's voice suddenly boom through the darkness, distorted just enough to sound unearthly, while the smell of sulfur from the underground vents filled your lungs. It wouldn't take much to convince anyone they'd stood in the presence of the divine. Then there's the matter of the vapors. Ancient sources describe the Pythia inhaling mysterious gases that sent her into a trance, but modern geologists have found traces of ethylene, a sweet-smelling gas known to induce euphoria and altered states. Combine that with the chamber's acoustics, and you have a perfect storm of sensory manipulation. The echo of her voice would have stretched unnaturally long, syllables bleeding into each other like a chant, while the gas blurred the line between her words and the hallucinations of those who listened. But the most chilling detail lies in the chamber's floor. The original stone is pockmarked with shallow pits, arranged in a pattern that, when tested, scatters sound waves in a way that mimics distant whispers. Visitors often reported hearing phantom voices even when the Pythia was silent, perhaps the result of wind channeling through the temple's columns, filtered through these cunningly placed hollows. It wasn't just a room, it was an instrument played by unseen hands to make mortals believe they'd touched the divine. And so the Pythia's legacy endures, not just in the fragments of her prophecies, but in this unnerving truth: at Delphi, the gods might have been silent. It was the walls that spoke. Beneath the rolling green hills of Ireland's Boyne Valley, Newgrange rises like a silent guardian, a 5,000-year-old tomb older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids. Step through its narrow 20-foot passageway and the air changes. The walls press close, lined with massive stones carved in spirals and swirls, funneling you toward a chamber where sound doesn't behave the way it should. Speak even a whisper here, and your voice swells, bouncing off the corbelled ceiling in layered echoes that seem to hang in the air like mist. This isn't just an old tomb, It's a sonic time capsule, engineered with precision that still stumps acousticians today. The magic lies in the chamber's shape. The passage narrows like a throat, compressing sound waves until they burst into the central space, where the domed roof acts like a natural amplifier. A single clap can ripple into a chorus of echoes, each one cleaner and clearer than physics should allow. Researchers have found that certain frequencies, particularly those in the range of human chanting, resonate so powerfully they vibrate the stones underfoot. It's as if the builders didn't just stack rocks, they tuned them, creating a space where sound could defy time itself. But here's the real mystery: Newgrange isn't just a tomb. It's a celestial clock. Once a year, at dawn on the winter solstice, sunlight pierces the roof box above the entrance, flooding the chamber with golden light for precisely 17 minutes. During excavations, archaeologists noted something eerie. The acoustics during this event are even more pronounced. Chants or drumbeats timed to the solstice sunrise would have been magnified tenfold, the vibrations syncing with the light to create an immersive sensory spectacle. Was this deliberate? The alignment is too perfect, the acoustics too precise to dismiss as coincidence. Some scholars believe Newgrange was a site of sonic ritual where the dead weren't just buried but summoned. Ancient Irish myths speak of the Shia, fairyfolk who dwelled in hollow hills and could be called forth by music or chant. The tomb's resonant properties might have been a bridge between worlds, allowing the living to commune with ancestors through sound. Even today, visitors report strange phenomena: voices that seem to whisper from the walls when no one's there, or echoes that loop back moments too late, as if the stones are remembering. And then there's the art, those intricate carvings covering the walls. They're not just decorations. Recent studies suggest the spirals and zigzags might serve as sound diffusers, scattering noise in specific patterns to enhance the chamber's eerie acoustics. It's a theory that gains weight when you consider similar designs in other ancient resonant sites, like the Oracle Chamber at Delphi. The builders of Newgrange may have been the world's first audio engineers, using stone and geometry to bend sound to their will. What lingers most, though, is the silence between the echoes. Stand in the chamber long enough and you'll notice something unsettling: the way the tomb seems to absorb certain frequencies, swallowing them whole. It's a duality, amplification and annihilation, that hints at something deeper. Perhaps Newgrange wasn't just a place to honor the dead, but to silence them when needed. A sonic lever between worlds, where the right whisper could open doors and the wrong one could seal them shut forever. Rising from the Yucatan jungle like a stone hymn to the heavens, the Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza holds an acoustic secret that still sends shivers down the spines of archaeologists. Clap your hands once at the base of this towering pyramid, and something impossible happens. The echo doesn't just repeat, it transforms. What bounces back isn't the sharp crack of palms meeting, but the haunting, fluted chirp of the sacred Quetzal bird, a creature so revered by the Maya it was considered a feathered serpent's companion. This isn't an accident of architecture. It's a deliberate sonic illusion carved into the very steps of the temple with mathematical precision. The magic lies in the staircase's design. Each of the pyramid's 4 sides has 91 steps, 364 in total, plus the crowning platform symbolizing the solar year. But these aren't just ritual counters. The treads are staggered at exact intervals, their angles calculated to fracture sound waves in a way that filters out lower frequencies. When a clap hits these steps, the echo strips away the bass, leaving only the high, wavering tones that perfectly mimic the Quetzal's cry. Modern acoustic scans reveal the temple acts like a giant musical instrument, with the staircase functioning as a series of sound baffles, sculpting noise as deliberately as a woodcarver shapes timber. Why go to such lengths? For the Maya, the Quetzal wasn't just a bird. It was a living bridge between earth and sky, its iridescent green feathers used in the robes of kings and priests. During equinox ceremonies, when sunlight slithers down the pyramid's edges like a serpent in motion, the chirping echoes would have filled the plaza below. Imagine hundreds of worshippers clapping in unison, the air erupting with the sound of invisible quetzals, a manufactured miracle telling the crowd the gods were near. Some researchers believe priests used this effect to answer petitions, timing their responses to the echoes so it seemed deities spoke through the stones. But there's a darker layer. Beneath the temple lies a sinkhole known as the sacred cenote, where offerings including human sacrifices were cast into the water. Sound tests show that screams from this pit would have been funneled up through hidden channels, their frequencies altered by the pyramid structure until they, too, resembled bird calls. A victim's final cries might have been transformed into divine omens, the temple acting as both amplifier and alchemist, turning terror into prophecy. Even more chilling is what happens when you stand at the pyramid's summit. Speak downward and your voice doesn't travel, it's swallowed by the geometry below. But face outward and words carry for miles, as if the temple were a stone megaphone. This wasn't just a place to hear the gods, it was built to let them speak through you, using acoustics to turn kings into conduits and whispers into thunder. Today, we can measure the physics behind these echoes, but the true genius of Kukulkan's builders lingers in the questions they left hanging in the air. Were they engineers or illusionists? And in a temple where sound becomes spirit, who's to say where the trick ends and the magic begins? At the heart of Beijing's Temple of Heaven, a circular wall of polished marble stands silent witness to centuries of imperial secrets. This isn't just any barrier, it's the Echo Wall, a 5-meter-tall marvel where whispers defy physics. Press your lips close to its smooth surface and murmur a phrase, and someone over 100 meters away, with their ear against the opposite side, will hear your words as clearly as if you were standing beside them. Yet take just 2 steps back, and the magic vanishes, your voice swallowed by the open air, your secret safe once more. The precision is uncanny. The wall doesn't merely carry sound, it conducts it, bending whispers along its curve with such fidelity that even the cadence of a breath remains intact. This acoustic perfection wasn't just for amusement. The Temple of Heaven was the sacred stage where emperors, the so-called sons of heaven, conducted rituals to maintain cosmic order. Every winter solstice, the ruler would ascend the complex's triple-tiered altar to commune with the gods, his prayers whispered into the architecture itself. Historians believe the Echo Wall served as a divine hotline, a way for priests to relay celestial messages during ceremonies without breaking the sanctity of the moment. Imagine a high priest murmuring instructions against the marble, his words traveling unseen to acolytes stationed elsewhere in the complex, while the uninitiated masses heard only silence. It was theater of the highest order, where acoustics became a tool of both power and mysticism. What makes the Echo Wall even more remarkable is how it filters sound. Unlike ordinary echoes that degrade over distance, this structure preserves the human voice's nuances while eliminating ambient noise. Researchers have found that the wall's curvature and the special glaze on its bricks act like a natural audio filter, suppressing frequencies above and below the range of speech. The effect is so precise that 2 people can hold separate whispered conversations at different points along the wall without any crossover, a feature that would have allowed multiple imperial rites to occur simultaneously without interference. Modern engineers still can't fully replicate the wall's properties. The 15th century builders achieved this acoustic perfection without computer modeling, relying instead on trial and error with materials we've since lost the recipes for. The marble came from quarries now exhausted, mixed with an egg-white mortar that gave the surface its glass-like finish. Some scholars speculate the wall's foundation, a mixture of crushed porcelain and rice paste, absorbs ground vibrations that might otherwise distort sound. Every element was tuned, not just for durability, but for resonance. Perhaps most telling is what happens when you try the same trick at other circular structures in the complex. None perform like the Echo Wall. This suggests its placement wasn't arbitrary but calculated, aligned with the imperial processional route, so the emperor's footsteps would never disrupt its sonic clarity. In a realm where every whisper could shift the mandate of heaven, this wall wasn't just architecture. It was a vault for the empire's most dangerous secrets, proving that in ancient China, even sound bowed to the will of the divine. Deep in the jungles of Honduras, the ancient Mayan ball court at Capon stretches between two sloping stone walls, silent now but once alive with a sound that shook the earth. This wasn't just a sports arena, it was an acoustic weapon. When players hurled the heavy rubber ball across the court, the impact didn't just echo. It detonated, the sound ricocheting off the precisely angled walls with the force of a thunderclap. Modern acousticians measuring the site have found something extraordinary. The court's design acts like a giant amplifier, with the parallel walls funneling sound waves into a rolling crescendo that could be heard miles away. Imagine the terror and awe of spectators as each strike of the ball boomed through the plaza, mimicking the roar of the gods themselves. The game played here, Pak Top Hak, was no simple competition. It was a ritual reenactment of cosmic battles, where the ball symbolized the sun's perilous journey through the underworld. Some matches ended in sacrifice, whether the losers, the winners, or captives meant to reenact mythological deaths remains debated. But the acoustics suggest the Mayans engineered every element for psychological intensity. The court's stone benches slope inward, creating a parabolic effect that concentrates sound toward the center. A shout from the high priest's platform would have been projected outward, while the crowd's gasps and chants were swallowed by the walls, leaving only the terrifying percussion of the game itself. Most chilling is how the court manipulates specific frequencies. The rubber balls, weighing up to 9 pounds, produced deep, resonant thuds at around 60 Hz, a frequency known to trigger primal fear responses in humans. Combined with the echoes, the effect would have been visceral, like standing inside a drum being struck by giants. Archaeologists have even found evidence that the Mayans tweaked the acoustics over time, adding carvings and niches to the walls that scatter sound in ways that mimic jaguar growls when the ball reaches certain spots. Perhaps the most haunting discovery came in 2012, when researchers noticed something odd about the ball court's orientation. The morning sun strikes the eastern wall at a slant during equinoxes, heating the stone until it expands just enough to alter the acoustics. On those days, the echoes stretch longer and lower, as if the court itself were breathing. Was this intentional? The Mayans left no manuals, but one thing's clear: at Capon, the game wasn't just watched. It was felt in the ribs, in the teeth, in the trembling ground. A reminder that for the Mayans, sport wasn't entertainment. It was survival, played out in a temple of sound where every echo carried the weight of the cosmos. Carved into rose-red cliffs so sheer they seem to bleed into the Jordanian sky, the treasury at Petra doesn't just stun the eye, it plays tricks on the ear. Approach this 2,000-year-old masterpiece through the narrow Sick, a winding canyon barely wide enough for 3 men to walk abreast, and you'll notice something unsettling long before the carved columns come into view. The walls here don't just echo, they conspire. A footstep crunches against the gravel, and suddenly the sound multiplies, ricocheting off the striated sandstone in layered whispers that feel less like natural reverberation and more like ghosts of long-dead Nabateans hissing from the rock. The effect reaches its crescendo at the canyon's terminus, where the treasury's ornate facade looms 60 meters high. Clap your hands once, and the shockwave bounces back distorted, not a crisp echo, but a rolling cascade that seems to emanate from the building itself. Recent acoustic studies reveal why. The facade's intricate columns and alcoves act like a giant sound diffuser, breaking noise into fractal echoes that linger just a half-second longer than they should. To ancient visitors, this would have been pure theater. Imagine a priest chanting as a procession near the treasury, his voice warping into a chorus of unseen speakers, while the canyon walls squeezed the sound tighter and tighter until it felt like the mountain itself was speaking. But this wasn't just for spectacle. The Nabateans were master manipulators of perception, using every tool at their disposal to awe traders and diplomats journeying through their desert kingdom. The treasury's acoustics served as a psychological gatekeeper, amplifying the footsteps of approaching caravans to make lone travelers sound like armies, while muttering voices into indecipherable murmurs that bred paranoia. Some researchers believe the echoing canyon was deliberately left unmodified to enhance this effect, with the natural curves of the sick acting like a megaphone pointed straight at the treasury's entrance. The real genius lies in how the space responds to music. Bring a flute or drum into the canyon, and the notes don't just repeat, they harmonize with their own echoes, creating eerie polyphonies that early explorers mistook for desert spirits. Archaeologists have uncovered niches carved at strategic points along the Sick, possibly used to hold bronze bells or chimes that would have caught the wind, turning the entire approach into a living sound installation. Most chilling is what happens at dawn. When the first sunlight strikes the treasury's upper urn, the sudden expansion of the rock alters the acoustics for a few minutes, a phenomenon the Nabateans could have timed for maximum theatricality. Chants performed during this golden hour would have gained an unearthly vibrato, as if the gods were tuning the very air. Today, we can measure the physics behind these echoes, but the deeper truth remains. At Petra, the stones weren't just carved. They were taught to sing, and their song was power. Standing among the towering sarcens of Stonehenge, few visitors think to approach the smaller, bluish stones, but touch one with a hammer, and the past comes alive with a sound no one expects. These aren't just rocks, they're instruments. The so-called blue stones, transported over 150 miles from Wales, ring with a clear, metallic chime when struck, a phenomenon that's baffled researchers since the 1950s. Unlike the dull thud of ordinary sandstone, these stones produce tones lasting several seconds, vibrating at frequencies that seem almost manufactured. Geologists confirm the secret lies in their composition. Dolerite rich in quartz, a crystalline structure that behaves like a giant tuning fork when energy courses through it. This wasn't just a happy accident. Archaeoacoustic studies reveal the blue stones were placed with eerie precision. When mapped, their arrangement forms a rough acoustic chamber, where standing between certain stones amplifies the ringing into a surround sound experience. Some researchers argue this was intentional, a ritual soundscape designed to disorient or elevate participants during ceremonies. The theory gains weight when you consider Neolithic sites across Britain, where similar, ringing rocks were often chosen for sacred spaces. At Carn Menyn in Wales, the bluestone's original quarry, entire outcrops produce the same ethereal tones, suggesting ancient people sought out these sonic properties deliberately. But the real mystery is how they used them. Experiments show that striking different bluestones produces distinct pitches, hinting at the possibility of a primitive musical scale. When combined with the site's natural echoes, the effect would have been otherworldly, a chorus of chimes bouncing off the larger sarcens, warping and overlapping in the open air. Could Stonehenge have been a giant lithophone, played during solstice rites to summon spirits or mark celestial events? Folk traditions lend eerie support. Welsh legends speak of the singing stones of the old ones, while local farmers once called the bluestones the bells of the dead. The most unsettling discovery came in 2013, when audio engineers noticed something peculiar about the site's acoustics during heavy rain. Water changes how sound travels, and under these conditions, the bluestone's echoes stretch longer and lower, mimicking the vocal resonance of a human chant. It's a phenomenon the builders could have exploited, timing rituals to storms so rainfall became part of the performance. Even more telling, the bluestone's placement creates pockets of silence, spots where certain frequencies vanish as if absorbed by the earth itself. In a place where sound could both soar and disappear, perhaps the greatest ritual of all was learning when to listen and when the stones demanded silence. Beneath the windswept plains of Cappadocia, where fairy chimneys dot the horizon like stone sentinels, lies a hidden world where sound behaves strangely. Derinkuyu, an underground city carved so deep it could shelter 20,000 people. Descend into its shadowy tunnels, and you'll quickly realize these passageways aren't just silent corridors. They're alive with whispers that defy logic. Speak softly near one of the narrow ventilation shafts, and your voice will travel clear as a bell to someone stationed levels below, as if the very rock were a conduit for secrets. The engineering behind this acoustic phenomenon is as deliberate as it is ingenious. The tunnels twist in precise, asymmetrical spirals, their walls slightly curved to funnel sound downward while preventing echoes from bouncing back. It's a design that turns the entire city into a giant whispering gallery, where a warning murmured near the surface could alert defenders 8 stories down in the deepest chambers. Archaeologists believe this wasn't just an accident of geology. The shafts were carved at angles that amplify human speech frequencies while filtering out the rumble of footsteps or tools, a prehistoric intercom system disguised as ventilation. But the acoustics served a darker purpose too. Invaders stumbling into Derinkuyu's maze would find themselves disoriented by echoes that seemed to come from every direction. The tunnels branch in ways that scatter sound, making a handful of defenders sound like an army. Some passages feature sound traps, sudden narrowings where voices distort into garbled echoes, heightening the sense of paranoia. Imagine being an attacker in this lightless labyrinth, hearing whispers skitter along the walls just beyond your torchlight, whispers that might be your own voice, warped beyond recognition by the stone. Recent studies reveal another layer of sophistication. Certain chambers, like the circular spaces believed to be chapels, concentrate sound in their centers while keeping the edges eerily quiet. A priest conducting rites here could address a crowd without raising their voice, the acoustics ensuring every word reached the faithful while remaining inaudible to outsiders. Meanwhile, the city's massive rolling stone doors, each weighing up to half a ton, were positioned to muffle sound when closed, creating pockets of silence where even a scream wouldn't carry. The most haunting detail, Derinkuyu's builders seem to have harnessed resonance as a weapon. Strike one of the hanging oil lamps in the central plaza, and the vibration travels through interconnected tunnels, humming through the rock like a tuning fork. During sieges, defenders might have used this effect to simulate earthquakes, exploiting the psychological terror of rumbling stone. Today, standing in these tunnels, you can still feel it. The way the air itself seems to remember voices from centuries past, carrying fragments of old warnings, prayers, and the muffled cries of those who sought refuge in the earth's embrace. What chills the bones isn't just the scale of Derinkuyu, but the intimacy of its design. This wasn't just a hiding place, it was a city that listened. On the lush plains of central Java, Borobudur rises like a stone mandala, a colossal Buddhist temple where wind doesn't just blow, it sings. Climb to the upper terraces where 72 perforated stupas stand like frozen lace, and you'll hear it, a chorus of whispers as air slips through their diamond-shaped openings. Each hollow stupa acts like a flute, transforming breeze into harmonic sighs that ripple across the monument at dawn and dusk. But this isn't just the poetry of chants. The arrangement is too precise, the acoustics too consistent to be anything but deliberate. Archaeologists have found that the stupas are spaced at intervals matching the harmonic series, creating layered frequencies that mimic the human voice when wind speed reaches just 9 miles per hour, a common occurrence during monsoon season prayers. The effect is hauntingly human. On days when the wind aligns, the stupas don't just produce random noise, they generate distinct vowel-like tones, particularly the ah and sounds central to Buddhist chant. Researchers experimenting with 3D printed replicas discovered something even stranger. The stone lattice filters turbulence into clean sound waves, much like the vocal cords. It's as if the builders designed these stupas not just to house statues of the Buddha, but to breathe for them. Local legends say the temple was abandoned when its creators realized it had grown its own voice, though modern scholars suspect the whispering effect was always part of the plan, a sonic representation of enlightenment itself. Consider the timing. Borobudur's builders aligned the monument with cosmic events, its staircases marking equinox sunrises. During these sacred moments, wind patterns shift predictably, funneled by the nearby Menor Hills. Position yourself at the western terrace during sunrise in April, and the stupas don't just whisper, they harmonize, their tones bending into what acousticians call a just intonation chord. This exact harmonic relationship appears in ancient Tibetan singing bowls used to induce meditative states. Could the stupas have served a similar purpose? The most compelling evidence lies in the temple's relief panels. Among the thousands of carvings depicting Buddha's teachings, one scene stands out: a monk seated in meditation, surrounded by stylized swirls that early archaeologists dismissed as decorative. But compare these to modern soundwave visualizations, and the similarity is uncanny. The swirls match the frequency patterns emitted by the stupas at specific wind speeds, suggesting the carvers weren't just artists, they were acoustic cartographers, mapping the temple's voice into stone. Yet Borobudur guards one final secret. The central stupa, unlike the others, is completely enclosed. For centuries, scholars assumed it was unfinished until vibration tests revealed it emits a subsonic hum when wind strikes the dome at 45 degrees. This frequency, 19 Hz, is below human hearing but known to trigger feelings of awe. Pilgrims circling the upper terrace wouldn't have heard the sound, but they'd have felt it in their bones, a visceral echo of the Buddhist concept of anahat, the unstruck sound of the universe. Whether by design or divine accident, Borobudur doesn't just teach enlightenment through carvings. It resonates with it, using stone and wind to whisper what words cannot. High above the nave of Chartres Cathedral, hidden between vaulted stones, lies a secret orchestra that has shaped sacred sound for centuries. Dozens of ceramic vases, each carefully tuned and embedded in the walls like frozen bells. These aren't decorations, they're acoustic weapons designed to hijack the human voice and project it across vast spaces with supernatural clarity. While Gothic cathedrals may seem young compared to ancient temples, their architects inherited an acoustic tradition far older, one that might trace back to long-lost technologies of Greece and Rome. Step into Notre Dame de Paris at dawn when the first chant rises from the choir, and you'll feel the difference immediately. Notes seem to hover in the air, richer and more resonant than physics alone should allow. That's the vases at work. Experiments show these hollow pots, ranging from grapefruit to barrel size, act as Helmholtz resonators, capturing specific frequencies from singers' voices and amplifying them while dampening dissonant echoes. The effect is uncanny. A single voice can fill a space built for thousands, as if the very walls were leaning in to whisper the words again. But here's what chills historians: the vases echo literally and figuratively. Roman writings describe theaters lined with bronze vessels called ecchia, designed to enhance actors' voices. Vitruvius, the famed architect, detailed how these resonators were spaced at mathematical intervals to harmonize with human speech. Yet no intact examples survive, only whispers in texts. Did Gothic builders rediscover this ancient tech through trial and error, or were they working from faded scrolls smuggled out of crumbling Byzantine libraries? The similarity is too precise to dismiss. The craft behind these resonators reveals even deeper sophistication. Each vase wasn't just tossed into the mortar, it was tuned. Builders adjusted thickness, neck diameter, and placement to target specific notes in Gregorian chant. In Canterbury Cathedral, archaeologists found vessels deliberately cracked before installation, likely to shift their resonant frequency. Some cathedrals even layered vases at different heights, creating a vertical sound column that made priests' voices seem to descend from heaven itself. Modern acousticians have mapped these effects with laser precision. At Barcelona's Santa Maria del Mar, microphones placed near embedded vases register a 3 decibel boost at exactly 296 Hz, the fundamental frequency of male liturgical singing. That's not luck, that's physics weaponized for worship, yet the most haunting detail might be what happens when these cathedrals fall silent. Remove the choir, the organ, the shuffling of feet, and the vases don't just stop resonating, they start listening. Infrasonic vibrations from distant traffic or wind hum through their hollow bodies, generating tones so low they're felt more than heard. In the right conditions, the entire building becomes a giant theremin, playing itself with the city as its bow. Perhaps this was the true secret passed down from antiquity. Architecture shouldn't just amplify sound, it should converse with it, turning stone into a living membrane between earth and whatever lies beyond. Stand in Chartres' echoing nave today, and you're hearing more than medieval engineering. You're eavesdropping on a conversation that began when the first potter pressed thumbs into wet clay, wondering how to make walls sing. Perched on the slopes of the Peloponnese, the Theater of Epidaurus doesn't just whisper, it stuns. Built in the 4th century BCE, this marble masterpiece boasts acoustics so precise, a single tear hitting the stage floor can be heard clearly by someone sitting in the very last row, nearly 200 feet away. No microphones, no modern trickery, just stone carved with such mathematical perfection that it defies belief even today. Drop a coin center stage, and the metallic ping ricochets through the amphitheater like a gunshot, reaching every one of its 14,000 seats with crystalline clarity. The secret lies in the geometry. Greek engineers shaped each of the 55 tiers like a sonic funnel, with limestone seats acting as natural sound filters. The stepped rows absorb lower frequencies, muffling crowd noise and wind, while reflecting higher pitches straight upward. But the real genius is in the minute details, the slight outward tilt of each seat, the precise curvature of the orchestra floor, even the spacing between the limestone's natural pores. Together, these elements create a phenomenon called acoustic diffraction, bending sound waves in a way that distributes them evenly. Modern researchers have found that the theater's shape mimics the human ear's cochlea, amplifying voices while suppressing echoes. Was this a fluke? Hardly. The Greeks weren't just builders, they were physicists in togas. Vitruvius wrote of embedding bronze resonating vessels in theater foundations to enhance acoustics, a technique possibly used here. What's more, the theater's proportions follow Pythagorean harmonic ratios, with the diameter exactly twice the height, creating a natural resonance chamber. Even the actors' masks played a role. Their hollow mouths acted as megaphones, while the exaggerated facial contours helped project sound. But here's the twist, Epidaurus isn't alone. Similar acoustic perfection appears in theaters across the ancient world, from Turkey's Aspendos to Sicily's Taormina. The difference, none match Epidaurus' consistency. Some scholars argue this wasn't just engineering, it was geopolitics. Epidaurus was a healing sanctuary dedicated to Asclepius, where sound quality could mean the difference between a persuasive cure and a failed ritual. Patients reclined in the front rows, soaking in therapeutic chants, while the steep slope ensured even the weakest voice reached them unimpeded. Today, the theater still holds mysteries. Singers report that certain notes, particularly those in the range of Greek liturgical chant, seem to gain volume mid-air, as if the stones are singing along. Engineers have even detected infrasound vibrations during performances, frequencies too low for human hearing but known to induce trance states. Was this the real purpose, not just to entertain but to alter consciousness? The answer might lie in the dirt beneath the stage, where recent ground-penetrating radar revealed a network of tunnels, possibly resonance chambers, still waiting to be excavated. Until then, Epidaurus remains a whisper from the past, proving that for the Greeks, perfection wasn't an ideal. It was measurable, carvable, and above all, audible. Stretching across the Breton countryside like a frozen army, The Karnak stones stand in eerie silence, but listen closely, and the silence might answer back. These 3,000 megaliths, arranged in parallel rows over 4 kilometers, have baffled archaeologists for centuries. While their purpose remains debated, one oddity keeps resurfacing in visitor accounts: the way sound dances between these ancient sentinels. Walk the main alignments at dawn when mist clings to the granite, and your footsteps don't just echo. They warp, bouncing off the stones at odd intervals that create a disorienting ripple effect. Some report hearing faint music when wind rushes through the gaps, a phantom orchestra of chimes no instrument could produce. The phenomenon isn't mere folklore. Acoustic surveys reveal something peculiar about the stone's placement. Unlike random scatterings, the megaliths are spaced at remarkably consistent intervals between 7 and 12 meters apart, a distance that coincides with the wavelength of low-frequency sound. When tested with tonal generators, this arrangement produces a comb filtering effect, amplifying certain frequencies while cancelling others. It's as if the stones were positioned to turn wind into a natural synthesizer, transforming breezes into harmonic drones. Local legends speak of the singing stones of Callanish, where druids supposedly conducted rituals accompanied by music from the air itself. Deeper in the alignments, the acoustics grow stranger still. At the Comario sector, one particular horseshoe formation of stones acts like a natural whispering gallery. Words spoken softly at its center are carried along the outer rim with unsettling clarity. Yet 2 steps outside the formation, the same words become garbled whispers. Even more unsettling are reports from nighttime visitors who claim the stones, remember, sound replaying snippets of conversation minutes after they were spoken, as if the granite had absorbed vibrations like a tape recorder. Could this have been intentional? The builders left no written records, but circumstantial evidence suggests sophisticated sonic knowledge. Many stones bear cup marks small, carved depressions that acoustic engineers now recognize as primitive sound diffusers. When struck, these stones produce distinct tones, leading some researchers to theorize they were used as lithophones during ceremonies. Most compelling is how the entire complex aligns with natural sound corridors. The main rows funnel sea winds from the nearby Morbihan Gulf, creating predictable airflow patterns that would have made the singing effects reproducible during solstices or lunar events. Perhaps the most chilling experiment came in 2019, when archaeologists noticed something odd about the ground beneath the stones. The soil contains unusually high concentrations of quartz, a mineral known for its piezoelectric properties. Under certain conditions, quartz can generate weak electromagnetic fields when subjected to pressure or vibration. During a thunderstorm, the entire site might have hummed with energy, the stones acting like primitive amplifiers for natural infrasound. Combine that with the site's acoustic properties, and you have a recipe for sensory overload perfect for rituals designed to blur the line between earth and spirit. Today, standing among these stones at sunset, you can still catch traces of their lost symphony. The wind doesn't just blow here, it composes, weaving between granite monoliths tuned by time. Whether by accident or design, Karnak remains one of archaeology's great sonic puzzles, where every whisper might be an echo and every echo could be a message. Deep within the basalt cliffs of Maharashtra, the Ajanta caves cradle an acoustic secret in their shadowed chambers. Carved by Buddhist monks between the 2nd century BCE and 5th century CE, these 30 rock-cut sanctuaries don't just house ancient frescoes, they sculpt sound with the precision of a luthier shaping a violin. Step into Cave 10, the oldest prayer hall, and let your voice rise in chant. Within seconds, the curved ceiling and horseshoe-shaped walls wrap around the notes, amplifying them into a resonant hum that seems to emanate from the stone itself. The effect isn't random. Measurements show the walls reflect sound waves inward, creating a focal point where a monk's mantra would have reverberated through their ribs as much as their ears, a physical manifestation of sacred vibration. Stand beneath the domed apex and the acoustics shift again. Here, low-frequency tones like the deep arm of meditation linger for an extra 2 seconds, almost twice as long as in open air. Archaeologists found the walls here coated with a thin layer of lime plaster mixed with rice husks, a primitive acoustic treatment that dampens harsh highs while enriching bass frequencies. It's a recipe that modern recording studios would recognize, yet these artisans discovered it 1,500 years before the science of soundproofing existed. The result, a space where chanting doesn't just fill the room, it saturates the body, turning prayer into a full sensory immersion. But the true marvel lies in Cave 26's Chaitya Hall. The stupa at its center isn't merely a symbolic representation of the Buddha, it's a sonic lens. Whisper a sutra while circling the relic, and your voice will seem to pivot around the chamber, carried by the parabolic curve of the back wall. Monks performing the ritual circumambulation would have experienced their own voices bending through space, as if the teachings were being echoed by the cosmos itself. Some researchers believe this was intentional acoustic theater, a way to simulate the experience of divine communication during solitary meditation. Even the cave's paintings may hold acoustic clues. Infrared scans revealed that areas with the most intricate frescoes, particularly those depicting celestial musicians, correspond to spots where sound reflection is most precise. Were these artworks serving as visual markers for optimal chanting positions? The theory gains credibility when you consider the Deer Park mural in Cave 17. Hidden within the painted foliage are nearly invisible perforations, tiny holes that would have diffused sound waves gently, preventing the sharp echoes that disrupt meditation. Then there's the mystery of the cave's silence zones. Certain niches, like the side chapels in Cave 19, exhibit baffling anti-acoustic properties. Speak here and your voice doesn't echo, it's swallowed whole, creating pockets of utter stillness amidst the resonant halls. Modern architects call this effect a sound shadow, achievable today only with advanced materials. How the builders engineered these silent sanctuaries remains unknown, but their purpose seems clear: to offer monks a pendulum swing between resonance and quietude, between the roar of shared liturgy and the whisper of private revelation. Perhaps most telling is what happens at dawn. As sunlight filters through the cave mouths at specific angles, the warming rock subtly shifts the chamber's acoustics. Chants performed during this golden hour gain a vibrato-like quality, as if the stone itself were breathing alongside the monks. Local tradition speaks of the caves as the mountain that sings, and standing here as day breaks, you realize the truth in those words. The Ajanta caves weren't just shelters for art or meditation. They were instruments carefully tuned to transform human breath into something holy, proving that for these ancient devotees, enlightenment wasn't just seen or felt. It was heard. Rising above the Guatemalan jungle like stone giants, the temples of Tikal don't just dominate the skyline, they converse with it. Climb the steep steps of Temple 1, the so-called Temple of the Great Jaguar, and shout toward the sprawling plaza below. What comes back isn't just an echo. It's a response distorted, delayed, and eerily human-like, as if the pyramid itself were whispering secrets through the trees. This isn't accidental reverberation. Archaeoacoustic studies reveal the temple's layout forms a precise sonic grid, where sound bounces between structures with unnatural clarity. A clap at the base of Temple 2 can travel nearly 500 feet to Temple 4, ricocheting off limestone facades in a way that stretches a single syllable into a ghostly sentence. For the ancient Maya, this wasn't just physics, it was theology. The Popol Vuh, their sacred text, describes gods who communicated through echoes and wind. Priests interpreting these divine messages would have stood atop these very pyramids during ceremonies, their voices amplified by the architecture to sound otherworldly. Imagine a ruler proclaiming edicts from the summit, his words fracturing into layered echoes that rolled across the city like thunder. to the crowds below, it wouldn't sound like a man speaking. It would sound like the gods agreeing. What makes Tikal's acoustics even more unsettling is how they change with the weather. During the rainy season, humidity softens the echoes, creating a muffled murmur reminiscent of distant conversation. But on dry mornings, sound snaps between the temples with rifle-shot precision. Researchers have mapped hotspots where certain phrases, particularly those in the low register of Mayan chanting, reverberate longest. One such spot lies at the foot of Temple 5, where the combination of the pyramid's angle and the plaza's concave shape creates a natural amplifier. A whisper here can travel straight up the staircase, audible to those at the summit but inaudible just steps away, an acoustic illusion perfect for miraculous revelations. The real genius lies in the temple's staggered heights. Unlike symmetrical complexes, Tikal's pyramids rise at irregular intervals, breaking sound waves into cascading echoes that seem to come from multiple directions. During rituals, priests could have used this to simulate polyphonic voices, making it seem like an entire pantheon was responding to invocations. Modern experiments with replica structures confirm the effect. 3 people chanting from different temples can create the auditory illusion of a dozen voices, their words overlapping into a chorus no human throat could produce. Yet the most haunting phenomenon occurs at dawn. When the first light strikes Temple 4's roof comb, the sudden expansion of the stone alters its resonant frequency for about 20 minutes. Chants performed during this window gain a metallic vibrato, as if the building itself were singing along. Local guides still warn visitors not to shout near the temples at this hour, not out of respect, but because the echoes sometimes return in words no one spoke. Whether it's the jungle playing tricks or the stones remembering, one thing's certain: at Tikal, the past doesn't just whisper, it talks back. Beneath the quiet streets of Haltoxian lies a chamber where sound doesn't just reach your ears, it hijacks your nervous system. The Hypogeum here, a sister site to the more famous Halsafliani complex, is a labyrinth of underground rooms where certain frequencies don't echo, they colonize. Speak at a particular pitch and the vibrations don't fade. They crawl up your legs, resonate in your ribcage, and settle deep in your bones like a second heartbeat. This isn't just acoustics, it's physical possession by sound. The phenomenon centers around a frequency of 110 Hz, the same tone found at Halsafliani's oracle chamber. When tested, this pitch causes the entire chamber to vibrate perceptibly, creating a sensation ancient worshippers might have interpreted as the touch of the divine. But Haltoxian adds a terrifying twist. The walls here are studded with carved niches that act like acoustic lenses, focusing sound waves into beams. Stand in one spot and the vibration is mild. Take 3 steps left and it feels like your skull is humming. Modern researchers with accelerometers have mapped these hotspots, revealing patterns that align eerily with the remains of altars and ritual spaces. What were they doing here? The leading theory involves sound-induced trances. At 110 Hz, the human brain shows decreased activity in the language centers and increased activity in the right hemisphere, the side associated with creativity and religious experience. Combine this with the chamber's flickering oil lamps found still blackened on the ceilings, and the traces of hallucinogenic herbs discovered in ceramic bowls, and you have a recipe for altered states. Imagine a priestess chanting while initiates stood trembling at the nodes of maximum resonance, their bodies vibrating in sync with tones that short-circuited rational thought. Then there's the death pit. A narrow shaft in the deepest chamber amplifies screams to unbearable volumes while strangely muting all other sounds. Archaeologists found it filled with animal bones and shattered figurines, offerings perhaps to something that demanded voices as sacrifice. The acoustics suggest a horrifying ritual sequence. Victims might have been led blindfolded to the shaft's edge, their disorientation amplified by the space's uneven resonance, before being forced to cry out their final sounds, twisted into something inhuman by the stone throat of the pit. But the most unsettling discovery came in 2018 when a team from the University of Malta noticed something odd about the ceiling. The limestone is riddled with microscopic channels, almost like pores, that vibrate at specific frequencies when wind passes over the Hypogeum's entrance. On stormy nights, the entire chamber thrums with an infrasonic growl, a sound felt more than heard. It's a phenomenon seen in only one other place on Earth, the chambers beneath certain Egyptian pyramids. Whether by design or cosmic coincidence, Hypogeum doesn't just use sound. It lives and breathes it, turning air into a weapon, a sacrament, and perhaps for those who knew how to listen, a key to worlds we've forgotten how to enter. Perched high in Peru's sacred valley, the fortress of Ollantaytambo doesn't just command the landscape, it conducts it. Walk along its massive terraces at dawn, when the morning mist still clings to the andesite walls, and you'll notice something unsettling about the acoustics. A single footstep doesn't just echo. It liquefies, rippling through the air like pebbles tossed into a stream. This isn't the work of wind or chance. The fortress's 600 terraces are staggered at precise intervals, their edges slightly curved to fracture sound waves in ways that mimic flowing water. Clap your hands near the temple hill, and the echo doesn't snap back. It cascades, layering upon itself until the air hums with the illusion of an invisible river. Why would the Incas engineer such an effect? The answer might lie in the fortress's dual purpose as both stronghold and sacred site. During sieges, the disorienting watery echoes could have masked the movements of defending forces, making a handful of soldiers sound like an advancing army. Spanish chronicles describe conquistadors hearing what they swore was a mountain stream during their assault in 1537, only to find the terraces dry as bone. But the acoustics served a spiritual function too. On certain terraces, the angle of the walls transforms chanting into harmonic cascades, with sustained notes splintering into chords that seem to rise from the stone itself. Archaeologists have discovered that the central platform aligns with the Patacancha River below, not just visually, but acoustically. During the June solstice, when water levels peak, the rushing torrent synchronizes with the terrace's echoes, creating a natural surround sound effect for rituals honoring the water god Yunu. The real stroke of genius lies in the masonry. Unlike most Inca walls, Ollantaytambo's stones feature unusual vertical grooves. For years, these were dismissed as decorative, until sound engineers noticed they function like the baffles in a modern concert hall, scattering mid-range frequencies while allowing bass tones to roll unbroken. Strike a drum near these walls, and the deeper beats travel farther, carrying across the valley like distant thunder. Combined with the terrace's water illusion, the effect would have been transcendent during ceremonies, a sonic sleight of hand making petitioners believe the gods were answering through the very elements. Yet the most haunting phenomenon occurs in the fortress's unfinished sectors. Here, partially quarried monoliths stand frozen mid-construction, their rough surfaces creating chaotic echoes that clash with the precision elsewhere. Some researchers believe this was intentional, a dissonance zone, where initiates underwent trials of disorientation before accessing the harmonic terraces above. Others point to the peculiar way wind channels through these blocks at sunset, generating low-frequency drones similar to Tibetan singing bowls. Whatever the purpose, Ollantaytambo stands as testament to an empire that didn't just build with stone, but composed with it, turning warfare and worship into a single, reverberating art form. On the windswept cliffs of Malta's southern coast, the Mnajdra temples stand as silent witnesses to a sophistication we're only beginning to unravel. Built over 5,000 years ago, these limestone structures align with such precision that during equinoxes and solstices, sunlight pierces through doorways to illuminate altars with eerie accuracy. But step inside during these celestial moments, and you'll discover something even more extraordinary. The stones don't just mark time, they sing with it. The solstice alignment isn't just a visual spectacle, it's an acoustic trigger. Researchers found that when dawn light floods the lower temple's central corridor, The sudden temperature shift causes the limestone to expand minutely, altering the chamber's resonant frequencies. Chants or drumbeats performed at this exact moment gain a metallic sheen, their echoes stretching longer and clearer than at any other time of year. The effect is most pronounced in the temple's oval chambers, where concave walls act like parabolic reflectors, focusing sound waves toward the altar with laser precision. It's as if the builders engineered a celestial amplifier, a space where sunlight and sound converge to create moments of acoustic transcendence. Deeper in the complex, the acoustics grow stranger still. The so-called oracle chamber, a small recess hidden behind the main altar, exhibits bizarre directional properties. Whisper a prayer facing its back wall during the summer solstice, and the sound doesn't echo, it pivots, emerging from the ceiling as if the stones themselves were speaking. Modern audio analysis reveals this isn't just reverberation. The chamber's unique geometry bends sound waves upward, creating an illusion of voices descending from the heavens. Archaeologists discovered blackened ceilings here, suggesting fires were lit to heat the stone before rituals, subtly tuning its acoustic properties like the strings of a violin. Then there's the mystery of the silent threshold. The doorway between the temple's two main sections deadens sound when crossed at midday during winter solstice. Footsteps, voices, even the clatter of ceremonial objects all are muffled the instant they pass this invisible boundary. Geologists found the limestone here contains unusually high concentrations of fossilized sea creatures, their porous shells creating natural sound absorption. Was this a deliberate choice? The threshold aligns perfectly with the solstice sunbeam's path, suggesting these builders didn't just observe celestial events, they wove them into sensory rituals where light and silence danced together. Perhaps most haunting is what happens when wind strikes the temples during equinox tides. The structure's corbelled roofs, with their precisely angled slabs, funnel gusts into harmonic whistles that resonate through the chambers at frequencies between 110 and 120 Hz, the same range known to induce trance states in humans. Local folklore speaks of the temples calling to the sea during these times and standing inside as the wind rises. You can almost believe it. The stones don't just amplify sound, they compose with it, turning nature's breath into a liturgy older than written words. What lingers isn't just the ingenuity, but the intention. Mnajdra's builders left no written records, but their architecture whispers of a world where astronomy, acoustics, and spirituality were inseparable. In these chambers, the winter solstice wasn't just observed, it was heard, felt in the vibration of stone and the shudder of air. They didn't need microphones or spectrographs. They had something we've since forgotten, the knowledge that to truly mark time, you must first learn to listen. At the heart of Uxmal's sprawling ruins, the governor's palace hides an acoustic marvel in plain sight, a staircase that doesn't just echo but answers. Clap your hands sharply at the base of these weathered steps, and the sound that ricochets back isn't the flat slap of stone against stone. Instead, the air fills with a rapid-fire chorus of chirps, each one unnervingly identical to the call of the resplendent Quetzal, the sacred bird whose emerald feathers adorned the robes of Maya kings. This isn't just a curious echo, it's a meticulously engineered illusion, one that mirrors the famed Quetzal effect at Chichen Itza, yet with a haunting twist where Chichen Itza's pyramid produces a single, drawn-out cry. Uxmal's staircase replies with a staccato burst, as if a flock of invisible birds were nesting in the limestone. The secret lies in the steps' unique geometry. Unlike ordinary staircases, these are staggered with irregular tread depths and slightly convex surfaces, fracturing sound waves into rapid, high-pitched reflections. Modern acoustic scans reveal the design functions like a natural synthesizer, each step tuned to reflect specific frequencies while cancelling others, leaving only the Quetzal's signature shrill tones. But the true genius emerges during rainstorms. When water pools in the subtle depressions carved into each step, the liquid alters the sound's timbre, transforming the chirps into warbling trills that mimic the Quetzal's mating call. Given that Uxmal's heyday coincided with the bird's annual migrations, the effect would have been a sensory masterpiece, priests timing ceremonies to storms when the palace seemed to come alive with the voices of divine messengers. Why this obsession with avian echoes? For the Maya, the Quetzal wasn't just a bird. It embodied Kukulkan, the feathered serpent god who bridged earth and sky. Chronicles from the Spanish conquest describe how rulers used these acoustic tricks during diplomatic meetings, clapping to summon omens that legitimized their power. At Uxmal, the staircase's position amplifies the illusion. It faces west, aligning with Venus's descent into the underworld. During these celestial events, the chirping echoes would have rolled across the Grand Plaza, synchronized with the planet's fading light, convincing onlookers that the cosmos itself was speaking through stone. Yet Uxmal adds a darker layer to this sonic tradition. Beneath the palace lies a network of cenotes, their cavernous spaces acting as natural echo chambers. Recent excavations uncovered hundreds of ceramic whistles shaped like quetzals near these water sources, each tuned to match the staircase's frequencies. Blow into one, and the sound travels through underground channels, emerging distorted and amplified near the steps. A ventriloquist trick that could make it seem like the chirps originated from thin air. Combine this with the Maya's renowned hallucinogenic brews, and you have a recipe for transcendent terror. Rulers who didn't just command loyalty, but orchestrated the very voices of the gods. Standing before these steps today, the genius of Uxmal's builders lingers in the unanswered questions. Was this an ancient form of psychological warfare? A ritual technology to induce visions, or proof that the Maya understood sound's power not just to communicate but to conjure? The stones won't say. But clap your hands just once, and for a fleeting moment you'll hear the past replying not in words, but in feathers and wind, a language we've forgotten how to speak. Rising above Cusco like the teeth of a stone giant, Sacsayhuaman's zigzagging walls do more than defy earthquakes. They fracture sound into something alive. Run your palm along these mammoth limestone blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, and you'll feel the precision of their jagged edges, not just architectural flourish, but an acoustic labyrinth engineered to bewilder. Shout near one serrated corner, and your voice splinters into a dozen echoes, each ricocheting off the walls at staggered intervals, as if the fortress itself were laughing back in broken syllables. This disorientation wasn't accidental. The Inca, masters of both warfare and worship, designed these undulating battlements to weaponize sound. During attacks, defenders could relay coded signals across the complex using clashing rocks or whistles, their messages scrambled into confusion for invaders but decipherable to trained ears. Archaeologists testing the site found that patterns of 3 sharp claps mimicking the Andean star Loma constellation carry cleanly around the central plaza, while random noise dissolves into chaos. Warriors stationed along the walls could have coordinated without words, turning the fortress into a giant stone cipher. But the true genius lies in how the walls manipulate fear. The angles aren't uniform. Each zigzag varies slightly, creating pockets where sound lingers unnaturally. A war cry launched from the north might seem to erupt from the east seconds later, sowing panic among attackers who couldn't track its origin. Spanish chronicles from the 1530s describe conquistadors freezing mid-assault, convinced an Inca army was flanking them, only to realize the ambush was an illusion spun by the stones themselves. Even today, visitors report whispers slithering along the walls long after their companions have fallen silent. Beneath this psychological warfare ran a sacred undercurrent. The wall's longest echoes occur at frequencies matching the pitch of Inca ritual chants, a coincidence too exact to ignore. During Inti Raymi, the Sun Festival, priests likely stood at acoustic nodes where their invocations would multiply into harmonic layers, mimicking the voice of Viracocha, the creator god. Modern audio maps reveal these hotspots align with solstice sunrise angles, suggesting the fortress wasn't just a military stronghold, but a temple where sound bridged the human and divine. The final twist, Sacsayhuaman's acoustics shift with temperature. At dawn, when cold stone contracts, echoes snap back sharp and fast. By midday, as heat expands the limestone, sound slows and warps, a phenomenon the Inca could have timed for rituals or raids. Stand here as shadows lengthen, and you'll swear the walls aren't just reflecting noise, but remembering it, replaying fragments of battles and blessings from centuries past. In this fortress, even silence feels like a language waiting to be decoded. Buried beneath the Sardinian countryside, the Hypogeum of Santa Cristina isn't just a well, it's a liquid instrument. Descend the moss-slicked steps into this 3,000-year-old sacred spring, and the first thing you'll notice isn't the chill or the darkness, but the way sound clings to the damp air like a second skin. Whisper a word toward the water's still surface, and within seconds the syllable slithers up the curved walls, reaching someone standing on the opposite side of the chamber with unsettling clarity. It's not an echo, it's acoustic teleportation, as if the well had learned to eavesdrop. The magic lies in the geometry. The temple's subterranean chamber forms a near-perfect parabolic dome, its walls precisely angled to reflect sound waves across the water like stones skipping on a pond. But here's the twist, the well's architects didn't stop at simple echoes. They engineered a feedback loop. When the water level rises during seasonal rains, the chamber's acoustics shift dramatically. Voices don't just carry, they multiply, layering over themselves until a single chant becomes a ghostly choir. Researchers measuring the space discovered that certain frequencies, particularly those in the range of neuralgic ritual incantations, create standing waves that visibly ripple the water's surface, as if sound were physically shaping the liquid. What were they doing here? The neuralgic civilization left no written records, but clues whisper through the stones. Bronze figurines of deities found nearby show figures holding vessels, possibly ceremonial bowls for water offerings. Modern experiments reveal that pouring liquid into the well during chanting amplifies specific harmonics, producing tones that vibrate the chamber's basalt walls. It's a phenomenon that would have blurred the line between prayer and physics, making worshippers feel their invocations were physically moving the divine. Then there's the moonlight factor. The Hypogeum's entrance aligns with the lunar cycle, allowing the full moon to cast a silver beam directly onto the water's surface. On these nights, the acoustics grow even stranger. Sound waves traveling through the humid air interact with the moonlit water, creating interference patterns that warp voices into eerie, flute-like tones. Local legends speak of the well that sings to the moon, and standing here under its glow, you can almost believe it. The neuralgic people might have timed their rituals to this celestial clock, using lunar-enhanced acoustics to simulate otherworldly communion. But the most haunting detail lies in the well's silent spot. Stand directly beneath the oculus, the circular opening to the sky, and all echoes vanish. Your voice doesn't bounce, it's swallowed whole by some acoustic quirk the builders surely understood. Archaeologists found charred offerings in this exact spot, suggesting it was a sacred void where words went to die, perhaps carrying messages to the underworld. Today, the Hypogeum keeps its deepest secrets. Dip a hand into that dark water, and you're touching the same surface that once turned whispers into thunder, that mirrored the moon while twisting chants into something not quite human. In this temple, sound wasn't just heard, it was harnessed, a bridge between earth and whatever lies shimmering just beneath. Beneath the golden plains of southeastern Turkey, the Göbekli Tepe pillars stand like silent sentinels from a forgotten age, 11,000 years old, predating Stonehenge by 6 millennia. While much of this prehistoric marvel remains shrouded in mystery, some of its secrets hum just beneath the surface. Run your fingers along the intricate carvings of Pillar 43, and you'll feel the faintest vibration, a hint that these stones might have once sung. Tap certain pillars with a piece of flint, and instead of the expected dull thud, they ring with a metallic resonance, as if the very rock remembers being something else. The acoustics here are subtle but unsettling. Researchers mapping the site noticed something odd. Pairs of T-shaped pillars, when struck alternately, produce harmonic intervals eerily similar to those used in later liturgical chants. One particular set, pillars 18 and 31, emits tones separated by a perfect fourth, a musical interval found in sacred music from Gregorian chant to Tibetan Buddhist hymns. Was this intentional? The pillar's limestone contains high concentrations of quartz, a mineral known to amplify vibrations, suggesting the builders might have selected these stones not just for their durability but for their sonic properties. But the real mystery lies in the carvings. Many pillars bear reliefs of foxes, scorpions, and vultures, animals with no obvious connection until you consider their sounds. Fox barks, insect clicks, and bird cries all fall within the same frequency range that the pillars resonate at. Could these carvings have served as a primitive musical notation, guiding initiates where to strike the stones to mimic the voices of the depicted creatures? During nocturnal rituals, flickering torchlight would have animated these carvings while their corresponding tones filled the air, creating a multisensory theater of the wild. The site's circular enclosures add another layer. Unlike later rectangular temples, Göbekli Tepe's curved walls create a whispering gallery effect. A person chanting at the center of enclosure D finds their voice amplified toward the periphery, while those standing near the outer pillars hear distorted murmurs perfect for creating the illusion of unseen participants. Archaeologists have even found depressions in the floor that may have held drums or hollow vessels, turning the entire space into a resonant chamber. What chills the bones isn't just the sophistication, but the implication. 11,000 years ago, before writing, before pottery, before permanent settlements, someone was orchestrating sound with the precision of a composer. Whether calling spirits, mapping constellations, or simply marveling at the magic of vibration, the builders of Göbekli Tepe remind us that humanity's oldest temples weren't just places to see. They were places to listen, and in their stones something still waits to be heard. On the windswept Isle of Lewis, where the North Atlantic howls across peat bogs and heather, the Callanish stones rise like frozen giants mid-dance. This ring of gneiss monoliths, older than Stonehenge by 500 years, doesn't just stand against the elements, it conducts them. When storm winds whip through the pillars, something uncanny happens. The stones don't merely whistle or moan, they sing, producing eerie harmonic tones that vibrate through the ground like the drone of some ancient instrument. Modern recordings reveal these aren't random noises. The megaliths emit frequencies between 90 and 120 Hz, the same range used in Tibetan overtone chanting to induce trance states. What makes Callanish's song even stranger is how it shifts with celestial events. During the lunar standstill, an event occurring every 18.6 years when the moon reaches its most extreme declination, the wind's angle changes just enough to turn the harmonic hum into a chorus. Researchers mapping these sound patterns found the stones act like a giant Aeolian harp, with the tallest central monolith serving as a sound post that organizes the chaos into discernible musical intervals. Local crofters have long spoken of the night the stones walked, a legend that gains new weight when you realize these lunar-aligned acoustics would have made the monolith seem alive, their voices swelling as the moon hovered unusually low in the sky. The stone's placement amplifies the mystery. Unlike simple circles, Callanish forms a Celtic cross pattern with avenues of pillars radiating outward. Walk these processional lines during a gale, and the soundscape morphs dramatically from a faint hum at the outer stones to a resonant buzz near the center. Archaeologists discovered that the central chamber's acoustic hotspot aligns with a buried slab of unusually dense rock, which reflects sound waves upward. This wouldn't just amplify chants, it would distort them, making a single voice seem to fracture into multiple tones. folklore hints at how this might have been used. The Gaelic name for the site, Callanish, translates not just as stones, but as stones of invocation. Medieval texts describe druidic rites here where singers matched their voices to the wind's pitch, creating beat frequencies that reportedly made the standing stones shimmer in place. While that's likely poetic license, physics confirms the effect. When two close frequencies interact, they produce a pulsating vibration visible in loose objects, perhaps the quartz veins in these stones glittering under torchlight. The darkest secret lies beneath the peat. Ground-penetrating radar revealed a subterranean chamber directly below the central pillar, an artificial cave with walls angled to funnel infrasound upward. These ultra-low frequencies, though inaudible to humans, can trigger feelings of dread or transcendence. Combine that with the audible harmonics above ground, and you have a full-spectrum acoustic ritual space designed to hijack the nervous system. What lingers isn't just the ingenuity, but the intimacy of the design. Callanish isn't a monument to be seen. It's one to be heard and felt in the marrow of your bones. When the wind dies and the singing stops, the silence feels like a presence itself, as if the stones are simply waiting for the next storm, the next moon, the next voice brave enough to join their chorus. From the echoing oracle chambers of Malta to the whispering walls of China's Temple of Heaven, these 25 ancient sites prove our ancestors weren't just stacking stones, they were composing symphonies in limestone and granite. Imagine standing in the heart of Newgrange as winter solstice light floods the chamber, your voice magnified into a chorus by 5,000-year-old acoustics. Picture Mayan priests at Chichen Itza conjuring the sacred Quetzal's cry from a pyramid steps, or Celtic druids at Callanish harmonizing with monoliths that hum in the storm winds. Every corner of the ancient world reveals the same startling truth. Sound wasn't just background noise to these cultures, it was a language, a weapon, a bridge to the divine. The precision is too consistent to dismiss as coincidence. At Delphi, the oracle's chamber amplified her trance-induced murmurs into godlike proclamations. The Hypogeum of Halsaflieni tuned its underground rooms to frequencies that alter human consciousness. Ollantaytambo's terraces mimic rushing water without a single drop in sight, acoustic illusions so advanced they baffle modern engineers. Whether through celestial alignments like Mnajdra's solstice triggered harmonics or Göbekli Tepe's 11,000-year-old resonant pillars, these builders were manipulating sound waves with the same intent a sculptor shapes clay. But the burning question remains, how much of this was intentional? Did the architects of Derinkuyu truly understand they were creating a subterranean whispering gallery, or did they stumble upon the effect while carving refuge from invaders? When the blue stones of Stonehenge rang like bronze bells, was it ritual design or happy accident? The line between discovery and engineering blurs across millennia. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between, ancient minds observing natural phenomena and refining them through generations of trial, error, and revelation. What's undeniable is the sheer variety of ways sound was harnessed, for control like Chavín de Huántar's jaguar growls echoing through terror-inducing tunnels. For transcendence, Borobudur stupas sighing Buddhist mantras into the wind. For sheer survival, the Hypogeum's death pit muting screams while amplifying whispers of conspiracy. These weren't parlor tricks, they were technologies as vital as the wheel or the plow, shaping faith, power, and community in ways we're only beginning to decode. So which of these sonic marvels speaks to you? The mathematical perfection of Epidaurus, where a single tear echoes like thunder, or Uxmal's staircase, where every clap summons a ghostly flock of Quetzals? Maybe it's the silent threshold of Mnajdra, where solstice sunlight switches off sound like a cosmic mute button. Drop your favorite in the comments. Was it engineered, mystical, or something beyond our modern categories? And if you're hungry for more mysteries where history whispers through the stones, hit subscribe. The past isn't done talking yet. In fact, if you listen closely, it might just be tuning up for an